Welcome to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. I'm Alicia Jay, and this is Ashley Nicole Moss.
Hello, everyone.
And we're live. Yeah, happy Monday. We're live. We're really excited to be here with you today live, and we're going to talk all about the WNBA. There's a lot to talk about, Ashley, just in this first, opening weekend. There's a lot to talk about. So, my goodness, this season coming in strong.
That is an understatement. But before we get into all that we have to talk about, I just want to remind you of the regular schmegular, and that is to follow us on all of our social media platforms. The show's YouTube page is where we post full-length episodes in case you missed it live like this, or you just weren't able to catch it the day after it went live. It's up there for whenever you feel the need or the desire to enjoy it. It's also where we post full-length interviews, like an amazing one we have coming up tomorrow. We won't tell you what it is, but you'll have to wait and see, and you won't be able to do that if your notifications are not turned on. And last but not least, if you are a podcast listener, scan this QR code and we will pop up wherever you get your pods. We're on Spotify and we're on Apple. So look, there's no reason to not be tapped in with us right here at We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T.
No reason at all. Definitely tap in. You won't get this live show, the alert for this live show if you're not. So definitely do that. But before we jump into all that we have to talk about in women's sports, because there is a lot, Ashley. WNBA opening weekend, what do you think was the best game? What and your best moment that you saw?
Obviously my Liberty getting their championship rings, the banner going up. New York basketball is having a moment right now. My Knicks are in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Of course, you have to put the Knicks in there for anybody who knows.
Of course, listen, 25 years, I've waited for this moment. I'm going to mention it any chance that I get. But the Liberty brought the championship, the most recent championship, to the city first. And I was just really happy to see Sabrina, Stewie, the whole squad. It was a packed house. I thought they did a great job with the rings. And it was also, sometimes championship or ring night can be so high in emotions that it doesn't produce the results on the court. But not only did they get to hang their banner and get their rings, but they got the dub. And I think it's just a phenomenal start to a new season, but also kind of a phenomenal ending to an incredible season, if you kind of want to look at it like that as well. So that's probably my favorite moment, just because I'm a little biased in that regard.
I would say the same thing. I mean, they had a 92-78 win over the Aces. That was, a great win for sure. But the reason why it was my favorite rather is that Natasha Cloud, she is somebody who I just really think deserves more flowers for everything that she's brought to the game and the WNBA. And, she came out super strong in that game. And a lot of people are saying she's the missing piece to what the Liberty have. And it's like, they were so good last year, right? And then how do you even get better? You add Natasha Cloud and some other players as well. But it was amazing to see that moment. And Kennedy Burke actually said, she was the missing piece. She brings that energy every time she steps onto the court, whether it's defense, offense. She's going to be that energy player for us. And, she's been in the league since 2015. Natasha Cloud has a championship with the Mystics in 2019, but she's just a player who has been such an impact player in this league. And I was just really glad to see her just come on in, kind of link in and just elevate what the Liberty is doing in every way. And just giving her flowers was one of my favorite moments for sure, Ashley. But there are so many moments that we need to talk about in the show. We're going to get into a little recap of the weekend sports action. Our thoughts, obviously, on the WNBA opening weekend, as we have already been talking about a little bit, what teams look like, the best standouts, the individual performances, what teams surprised us, which is an important conversation, and then whether or not the Rookie of the Year race could be a little closer than initially thought. But on top of all of that, there was definitely something that happened over the weekend that everyone is talking about, and that is the Sky and Fever matchup. Yes, I know, Ashley. I know. I have the same sentiments as you. Caitlin Clark was assessed with a flagrant 1 foul for a hard shove issued to Angel Reese, and naturally fan discourse immediately started online. Both players have called it a basketball play. Okay, that's very important, but that hasn't stopped the discussion from continuing. So with that said, Ashley, what are your initial thoughts on this? I know that we've talked about this at length and exhausted this.
Yeah.
Talk about it again because of what is happening right now.
So there's two things. I'm going to start with the first thing I have to say, then let you respond, and then I'll say my second. As somebody who is still relative, like I make no qualms about saying how Candace Parker is my favorite player and she was my introduction to the W. And, you know, I used to see the Liberty play at Madison Square Garden until they moved. But I was never a diehard W fan like I am NBA fan. And doing this pod has really allowed me to really not only become a fan of it again, but really like understand all the intricacies of not the game, because the game, obviously I cover the NBA, so the game is the same, but like the storylines and the players. And as somebody who considers herself a newbie in the WNBA space, I have to say how frustrating it is as somebody who just wants to enjoy basketball to constantly be flooded with just these moronic, just over the top statements, assumptions, think pieces about two competitors in this space. I have never seen this type of discourse in the NBA among two men, like ever in my life. And as somebody who, like I said, is getting involved in this space, it's so frustrating to the point that it almost makes you just not want to enjoy the product because you don't want to be flooded with just all of the gross rhetoric that comes from people who are just looking to get these just idiotic takes off without any basis, without any knowledge of the inner workings of the different cultures of the WNBA when it comes to team and personnel, and just the backstories of these women going even back to college, and just trying to make something out of nothing, to the point where there are people really like trying to speak for these players on their genuine emotions towards somebody else that they would have no way of possibly knowing unless they asked that person directly, or they were reading a direct quote from somebody where they said, I dislike this. But it is so frustrating to me that this conversation has not gone away in over a year. And for people who are getting into the WNBA, like myself and a bunch of other people, because of just the draft class that came in last season and the draft class this season, they must be like, what the hell is going on? And is it always like this? It's really, really, really frustrating. That's really the only thing I can say.
It's incredibly frustrating, and it takes away from the beautiful, amazing game of the WNBA. And these are people that are coming in that know nothing about the game. They are just purely commenting on things that are race-based in a lot of ways. Like, let's be clear.
Which I want to touch on when you're done. Go ahead.
Let's be clear. And also, they don't realize that basketball is supposed to be competitive. These moments are supposed to happen. Like, if you are passionate about the game and are a player who loves the game and are athletic in any way, you are passionate about the game and you are competitive. These are competitive moments that are happening, and also that are happening across the league. Shakira Austin and Mabry got into it this weekend. Jonquil Jones and Gray got into it this weekend. And it's because they are competitive players who are playing a beautiful game of basketball in the WNBA, and that is going to happen, and it should happen. As a matter of fact, in the men's game, they want it to happen more. People are calling for it to happen more. And these people who are having this discourse and having these conversations that have nothing to do with the game are taking away from it. I don't want to stop watching WNBA, but I definitely want to get off social media when I'm talking about anything having to do with this sport, because it is,
which is unfortunate, because that's where a lot of the great conversations happen. I know,
and there are some great conversations.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, overall, WNBA Twitter and NBA Twitter are kind of the motor of a lot of the conversations, a lot of the social projects that we have seen. That's why League Fits ultimately exploded for the NBA. Now they feature WNBA players, was because of the social conversation. So it's unfortunate that we're now at the point where it's like avoiding it is the only savior to your sanity at this point. Like,
well, and my heart goes out to Angel Reese, and my heart goes out to the Black players in this league, and also the Black women that are calling these games and talking about it as well, because they're all getting this vitriol from people who don't care about the game at all, and they're just trying to push their race agenda, because that is what the base is. And the comments that Angel Reese has to endure that come up just because she is playing a game of basketball. Let's be clear. In this interaction, she was not the one who started it, but she is the one who gets the brunt of everything that happens, especially when it comes into the interactions with her and Caitlin. And my heart goes out to her, because I, as a person who works in sports and social media, have to protect myself from reading the comments about her, let alone herself having to read these comments and put up with them. And just not even just the comments, but the threats, the things that people say. It is disgusting. There is no place for it anywhere, whether it pertains to her or any other player. And it does need to stop. It does need to stop. But unfortunately, in the world that we live in, I don't know if it will.
Yeah. In regards to the topic of race, there's a few things I wanted to address. One, I just want to make it very clear, because you know there's going to be people on the other side. We are not blaming Caitlin for how Angel is spoken about. She is not, the Oz behind the machine. She does not speak for the team. She does not speak for her fan base. She does not speak for everyone who has a hateful thought. She can only be accountable for Caitlin Clark, and she can do her best to make sure that that type of hate has no place in the WNBA. And I think she's spoken about this ad nauseum. She's given quotes about this. Nobody is putting this on her, but it is a very real thing that, in this country, in this world, unfortunately, but specifically in the US, what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. And over the weekend, we all saw the statement from somebody, saying that Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark, and the think piece that went into it. And I can say, as somebody who struggled with identity, being biracial and having to learn about two different races and where I fell in those two different races, obviously having privilege because of the color of my skin when it came to the Black community, but also always being seen as a Black girl to the white community, even though 50% of me is white. It's a very complex upbringing, and it causes you to learn about both societies and both demographics, and what goes into privilege and what goes into thoughts and the psyches of each race. And, the reality of the situation is that Angel will never be given the same grace as her white counterparts. This is just the world we live in. And I think it's very dangerous for people, especially people of color, who may find themselves in biracial relationships and have biracial children, to spew such derogatory and hateful remarks based on subjective observations, not facts, subjective observations that 5 different people can view 5 different ways. Because again, as somebody who grew up having to learn about both races and where I fit in that, it doesn't matter that I'm half white. The world sees me as a Black person. And when you learn that, and when you really fully grasp that, you know that the rules are different for you. And then the rules are even more different when you start talking about the Black community and what comes with certain skin colors, the privileges that are awarded in there. So I just think it's very dangerous to spew out words like hate and despise and dislike and jealous, not because these are such strong words, but because they're strong words when you're talking about a Black woman and a white woman. And again, there's no way of knowing if these are true. You can't say that somebody hates somebody without knowing it, that it's a fact. And Caitlin has come out and said that she doesn't hate Angel, and Angel has come out and she doesn't hate Caitlin. So basically, what everybody who continues to run with this narrative is saying, yeah, I heard them, but they're lying. So now the person that you're assuming to know how they feel about somebody else is lying when they say that how they feel is not how they feel. It's just such a dangerous line to walk. And if this, again, were the NBA and we had, if nobody ever said that Larry Bird and Magic Johnson hated each other because one was white and one was black. They used to go at it every single season. Two of the greatest basketball players of all time. No one ever said that they hated each other. LeBron and Steph. Steph is light skin, LeBron is dark skin. Nobody ever said they hated each other because it's such a nasty way to pit women against each other. And it's a dangerous way to pit women against each other because in the climate that we currently live in, race is not a laugh. It's never been a laughing matter. But right now, in this day and age, in 2025, it is certainly not a laughing matter. And I wish people who have no concept of how the WNBA works, how it's been working, the women with it would just stop speaking. That's the best thing they can do is just stop speaking. And that's how I feel.
Stop speaking and also like learn about the league and listen to what the players are saying. I mean, specifically, let's go for what Angel has said. For me, I don't think people realize it's not personal. I think people just take it like we hate each other. Me and Caitlin Clark don't hate each other. I want everyone to understand that. It's just a super competitive game. I just wish people would realize that. Once I get between those lines, there's no friends. We're not buddies. I'm going to talk trash to you. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get in your head the whole entire game. But after the game, we can kick it. I don't think people really realize that. And that's what a true competitor is. That's what any competitor should do when they get on the court, is everything that they can do to win. And that's what those two players are doing. Let it be what it is.
Right. And Alicia, I spoke to Angel Reese after the LSU championship. I flew to Baton Rouge and I interviewed her one-on-one. And she even said back then she only had the utmost respect for Caitlin Clark and said that she does not hate that girl. And why is the energy that she comes with as a competitor okay for her, but not okay for Angel? And this was years ago when I had this conversation with her. And I remember saying to her, look, it's not going to get easier. And we don't want you to change. This is what makes you you. This is what makes you a competitor. But just know it's not going to get easier. I had no idea that the not easier would be this ugly and just this low down. And it's very unfortunate that it has to come to this because Emma just dropped a note in here. Cheryl Miller said that at last year's All-Star, Kaylin and Angel were having fun. Listen, Michael Jordan used to be a killer on the court. Kobe Bryant, killer on the court. Guys hated him. They were punching teammates. And you know what? When it was all said and done, yo, it's good. You want to go get something to drink? Like, they're competitors. Let them compete and stop trying to make it a race thing. And more importantly, stop trying to pit women against each other. And if it's good for a man, especially when we're talking about competitive sports, let it be good for a woman too. I'm sure, unfortunately, Alicia, this won't be the last time we speak about this, but we will put a pin in it for now and switch gears a little bit to our weekly recap. The NWSL, they issued a statement apologizing and agreeing that last weekend's match between Angel City and the Utah Royals should have concluded after ACFC's Savvy King had to receive medical attention on the field after she collapsed, and that they were reviewing their policy, saying, quote, "The health and well-being of the entire NWSL community remains our top priority. In any similar situation going forward, the game should and would be abandoned." Now, since then, King has said that the medical team at ACFC, quote, "saved my life," and later was found to have a heart abnormality that she underwent surgery for on Tuesday, with her prognosis good, and that's according to the team. Crazy that they just continued playing. Like,
absolutely crazy. And also, it is a wonder that any of the other players did not get hurt, because when you see something like that, you stop to pray. Literally, they had a praying circle around this, and you are traumatized. It is traumatic to see a player go down like that. It is, I mean, it's a miracle that nobody else was hurt.
Don't you remember what happened to DeMar Hamlin?
Right.
And he was
it's
out for like 4 or 5 minutes on the field, and everyone,
yes.
even they finished that game ultimately. But Josh Allen even said like it was an out of body experience for him playing that game because his mind was just on what he just witnessed. Like,
Yeah, and I just hope that all teams across all sports take note that you should never continue a game, a match, whatever the case may be,
mhm.
after an event like this happens. I still cannot believe that they continue to play.
Yeah, just absolutely crazy. So hopefully we get some different policies moving forward. Despite losing to LA, the Golden State Valkyries made history in their first ever home opener, drawing over 18,000 fans, the highest attendance of any WNBA team in their debut game. So shout out to the Golden State Valkyries in the Yay area. I like to see a lot of the Warriors pulled up to that one, so that was nice support to see. And last but not least, for my block, that is the NCAA softball tournament is delivering on the drama, with Texas A&M becoming the first #1 national seed to be eliminated in the regionals since seeding began in 2005, falling at the hands of Liberty, who now move on to their first super regional in program history.
Well, Ashley, I can admit when I was wrong. I'll tell you this, and I was wrong on both fronts here. If for people who have been watching, I gave a guarantee that the Valkyries would win their first game. They did not. They did set a record, and then I also thought, I thought Texas A&M was going to go all the way.
It was a safe bet, though.
Nearly.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? I'll admit when I'm wrong. I'm okay with that. I'm right sometimes too. So just keep tuned to see which one I will be. But we were talking about the WNBA, and we also have to mention that a number of injuries riddled the WNBA opening weekend, with the Sparks' Ray Burrell going down with a right leg injury that will sideline her for 6 to 8 weeks. Collier Copper, meanwhile, she's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks after undergoing microscopic surgery on the left knee. I know all about those surgeries. Wishing everyone a quick and speedy recovery. The Chicago Stars announced that they will play their September 7th match against Orlando at Northwestern's Lakeside. It's called Lakeside Field at Martin Stadium, dubbing it the Lakefront Face-Off, which isn't bad.
That's a good name.
I'm here for that. The Lakefront Face-Off, which comes as the team's lease with their current stadium, expires this year. The Northwestern location is reportedly being considered as the team's future home. Elsewhere, star women athletes were busy getting their honorary doctorates, with Simone Biles receiving one from Washington University, while Jonquel Jones also received an honorary doctorate from Georgetown. So listen, that's a lot that is happening in women's sports. And of course, with these recaps and anything else in women's sports related, you want to subscribe on YouTube, tap in on all of our social channels, because you're not going to be able to get all of this right directly to you without being tapped in. So make sure that you connect in all ways.
Absolutely. And speaking of the WNBA, we're going to dive into opening weekend and our thoughts on opening weekend. This is all going to be positive, guys, so don't you worry. The WNBA season, the regular season at least, began on Friday with a number of teams making their statements through the first weekend. So Alicia and I are each going to give 2 teams that we were impressed by the most. I'll kick things off with Indiana. Despite all of the chaos and the discourse that came after the game, 35-point win is the largest season opener in team history, largest season opener win in team history. Caitlin Clark, she made history with a triple-double. But also Aaliyah Boston, shout out to her, 19 points, 13 rebounds. It was a huge win all the way around for Indiana. And we've been talking about this team, talking about what they have been building, talking about how it's taken them so long to get to this point, but they've really just stayed the course and really developed in young talent, and rather invested in young talent and really worked hard at developing that young talent. You get a star like Caitlin Clark, but you're still not satisfied, and you do what you need to do to build around her and the talent that you already have. We talk about the coaching. This is a team, again, very early in the season, but we spoke about them last season when they crept into the playoffs and said, hey, you're not going to want to see this team in a matchup. They could upset some people. But playing how they played in that first game, this is a real deal playoff team this year. There is no creeping in. Obviously, it's a long season, health permitted, all that good stuff. But health permitted, this team is the real deal. And I'm excited to continue watching them grow.
Yeah, definitely a team to watch on many different levels, and a team that stood out to me that is actually quite surprising, to be honest with you, with the moves that they made in the offseason. We were a little confused about what was going on, is the Washington Mystics. You know, they looked like a very well-rounded, put-together team. They've had a lot of changes, obviously, in the offseason. They also have a new head coach with Sydney Johnson. And they just came in strong. They showed that they had a really a put together team that is meshing really well at this point, this like super early point in the season. And then they also had a rookie duo of Sonia Citron and Kiki Iriafen. And they look dangerous. They look really good, both of them together. So the chemistry looks really good. The coach just really seems confident in what he has and what he's put together and what they're executing. And I'll just say, like, they really did impress me coming out the blocks.
And speaking of impress, speaking of championships, speaking of building championships, the New York Liberty, they hung their banner. We spoke about this to open the pod. Just going to re-mention it quickly in case you guys missed that. Champions. But not only that, I just think that you mentioned this also. The addition of Tasha Cloud has just been phenomenal for this team. And that's always the hardest task, right? You win a championship and you try to figure out ways that you can potentially run it back and get back to that position. And sometimes you can't keep everybody, and it's hard to figure out, you know, who you're willing to part with. And if you are going to part with them, who's going to come and fill that void? Can they even fill that void? And I just think that Natasha Cloud has been that for what we saw in such a small sample size. She's also loving the Brooklyn fans, the New York fans. She tweeted out, I believe, something like, Barclays, I love you. And she's kind of been looking for her home, her forever home. I feel like a big chunk of her career, just go somewhere where she can feel appreciated, rather, and the fans can feel that love back. And
in addition, the way that Phoenix kind of did the trade and the move aspect of it initially, it's one of those things where it's like, you may not understand what is going on then, but the plans are great for you.
That's right. Delayed, really not denied. And I just think, look, repeating is hard, and this is still so early in the season, but to be able to get your rings on such an emotional night, still get a dub over a good basketball team, and defensively look as well as the Liberty did, I think they're all good signs. So I'm going to give that to them as well.
Well, speaking of the Liberty, I'm going to talk about the team that they beat out to get that ring. And there's a lot of controversy about that too, that we can talk about. Maybe we can just table that.
Last year. That
was last year. We're in a new season, but Minnesota looked amazing. They look amazing, I should say, rather. Look, the balloons, Ashley, celebrating Minnesota in the play that they've done. They've had a very look, all the balloons.
Dang, that's crazy.
And they looked really, really good. And they dang, balloons. Every time I say they look good, apparently balloons are going to pop off.
Stop doing that.
I don't know what to do about it. But I also think those balloons are just because, all in all, we're talking about all these teams, but it is just going to be a really competitive season. Ashley, I know I keep saying this on every show, but seeing how strong these teams are. I mean, talking about Minnesota, you could talk about Napheesa coming in. She's coming in super hot this season. She had 34 points in the season opener. I mean, followed up with 23 against LA. They had very impressive back-to-back wins. But when you look across the league, and it was kind of hard for me to pick who was most impressive coming into it, because yes, James, Queen Fee is queening out there for sure. But it was hard for me to pick who was most impressive, because there is just a lot of impressiveness, if that is even a word, across the league. And so I'm just excited for the season period, Ashley, because it's definitely going to be a good one. But we've talked about teams and we've talked about what impressed us about the teams. But when it comes to people and just individual players that were playing and who impressed us most, let's just kind of go down the line of the performances that happened in this opening weekend. Napheesa Collier, as we just talked about, tied Candace Parker and Maya Moore for the most points in a season opener with 34. Kelsey Plum, you saw her out there flexing after the game that she had, put up 37 points in her Sparks debut. I mean, very impressive on all levels. Asia had 31 points, 16 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 steals. Come on with it. Her 100th career double-double, 6th WNBA player of all time to reach 100. We already talked about Natasha Cloud on all levels. Super proud of her. DeWanna Bonner moved to 3rd on the WNBA's all-time scoring list. Caitlin Clark, on her same team, put up a 20-point, 10 rebound, 10 assists, triple-double, fastest in WNBA history to reach 3 career triples, which is crazy. 3rd of her career came in less than 50 games, now tied with Candace Parker on the all-time list. And we talked about the rookies. They showed out in so many ways. Paige had 10 in her debut. And Sonia Citron is averaging 17 points per game. Kiki Iriafen had 15.5 points per game. I mean, and the list goes on and on when it comes to the rookies. As a matter of fact, it's reported that Sonia Citron had the most efficient WNBA debut in the league's history. And Sydney Johnson actually said those performances are going to have a big impact for both young women, but it's nothing that we really don't see in our gym quite literally every single day, and added that the pair are both confident and coachable. And Eric Banks, come on, Citron is looking like she finna snatch that Rookie of the Year, and I do not disagree. So Ashley, looking at all of these performances, what were the best, like what were the most epic to you?
It's hard to say, right? I think that obviously we got to give Caitlin Clark her flowers. Phenomenal season opener. Fee, record-breaking season opener, as did Caitlin as well. Don't want to take that from her. She did break a record. But also, look, I'm always obsessed with the rookies. You know, I'm always impressed, rather, I should say, with the rookies, because you make that transition. We talk about how there's not enough time from college, the championship, the tournament, if you make the tournament, to declaring for the draft, to training camp, to preseason, to the regular season. But these rookies, especially, we just had a comment up there. I was going to mention the Mystics. Just come out there looking ready to go, considering no time to really get acclimated to their new situation, their new environment. I just think, again, speaks to the testament about how every draft class, these rookies are getting better and better and more pro ready, that there's not a need. I mean, there still is a need, league, don't get any ideas, okay? But that because it's not an option yet, they're not letting that stop them from getting theirs right out the gate. And I love that.
I do love that. And I also want to give some love and some flowers to DeWanna Bonner. She has been a beast since she entered this league. Every single, team that she's been on, she's made a huge impact. She continues to do so. She is one of the greats in the WNBA, and I don't think she gets enough flowers for what she is doing. She's the level of athleticism, what she brings to the court, what she brings as a vet that she is bringing to Indiana is one of the reasons why they are firing on all cylinders. And to see that she moved to 3rd on the WNBA's all-time scoring list, to me, it is the standout, because not of what she's done just at the beginning of this season. We expect this play from her, but what she's done in her career. She has just been one of those players that I think just gets underserved and doesn't get enough light, but she is the glue that has held a lot of these teams together. So
well said.
Definitely wanted to point out DeWanna Bonner on every level.
Yeah, definitely well said. And we're going to continue watching some of our favorite players week to week. So make sure, again, you keep it locked on this pod every week during the WNBA season and beyond. But we're going to switch from the names of the usual suspects to the names of some new kids on the block when we talk about the Rookie of the Year race and how it could be more exciting than we initially anticipated. It is now time for our AT&T Guarantee presented by AT&T. All right, so as I mentioned, we saw a number of rookies show up and show out, which leads us to this week's guarantee. And that is this year's Rookie of the Year race is going to be more exciting and a lot tighter than people anticipated. Obviously, at first glance, the Rookie of the Year might actually end up being in Washington with the Mystics, who currently have the best rookie duo of any team. We all were talking Paige after the draft, but the Mystics said, we got some killers over here too, so make sure you're paying attention to us. Alicia, how are you feeling about the far too soon Rookie of the Year race? And this is a safe guarantee that it may be a lot tighter and a lot more exciting than initially anticipated.
I think it's definitely going to be a lot tighter than initially anticipated. I know we talked about that this draft class period, there are going to be people that are going to take us by surprise. Like, this is going to be one of the drafts where we're going to look back and be like, they got this player at this, because even though Paige was obviously locked to be number one, there was so much talent in the draft class that wasn't necessarily kind of amplified as much as it could be, that somebody was going to luck up with some great players. And I think you could say that about a lot of them, right? So yeah, I think it's going to be a tighter race than we think. But I also think, obviously, we're early on in the season, very, very early on in the season.
Very early.
And it's going to take some games for some of these players to get into their full potential as a rookie. And I think we're going to have some surprises that are going to arise. And but I do think that all the way around, there is going to be a tight race. Yeah, someone just mentioned share. Yes, thank you. So Abby Sports Picks and Analysis, thank you for always watching and supporting. Sarah Ashley Barker has to get consideration for Rookie of the Year for LA Sparks. She is a sleeper. I would completely agree with that. I think that Dominique Malonga,
what was the other comment before that? So Alicia can read that as well.
Yeah, it's going to be close until mid-year. Absolutely. It feels like mid-year is when we start to see teams sink or swim. And that is true. Like we said, it's super early on. That's a very true statement on all levels. But I also think that here come the balloons again, because they celebrating all of our great analysis. But I think that Dominique Malonga, too, even though she didn't have the showing that I thought she would in her debut, I would look for her to be very strong as well. So all the way around, I think we should be very excited about this rookie class. Paige going to win, though. This is what Only Morale said. Paige going to win, though. Her numbers are going to be bonkers. Paige almost had a double-double and a blowout loss, and she played bad. Think about that. Paige is going to win Rookie of the Year. Well, that is a statement for sure. We will revisit that as the season goes along, especially in the rookie race. But there is no doubt that this season is a very strong rookie class. Oh, the balloons are taking me out too.
Me too. I'm getting attacked by balloons here. It's absolutely. Yes. Y'all see, I'm not doing anything. My hands are here.
Well, so I would say, are we putting in a guarantee, Ashley, of
I think the safe guarantee is that it's going to be an exciting Rookie of the Year race.
Yes. And we could lock that in now. For sure. Well, we've talked a lot about things that have surprised us, along the way, but let's officially just kind of put it out there, Ashley, before we close the show. Just get into some of the most surprising things of this opening weekend. I know for me, I'll start it off. Seattle had a pretty tough loss out the gate. And when I look at their squad and I look at what they're bringing to the table and just the things that have been said in the offseason, I thought they'd have a little stronger showing. There's a lot of time to lock in and kind of gel and get everything together, but I just kind of expected a little more from them. So that was surprising to me.
No, I agree with you completely. I was definitely taken aback by that. Also, shout out to Chris Strawn says, yeah, Seattle and Dallas both played bad their first game. Be interesting to see if it's a blowout or two bad teams. Yeah, look, I think you know, it happens. Definitely keeping our eyes on both of those teams, though. I think for me, I'm so surprised at how well the Mystics look in such a short amount of time. Right, they are one of the teams that added the most pieces, and those pieces were going to have an acclimation period, and that's going to be day by day, week by week. But considering this was their first showing with all those new pieces and a lot of rookie pieces and young pieces, trying to figure it out on their own accord, they looked very well put together for considering where they are in their rebuild franchise mode situation. So that was something I was very surprised by.
Yeah, definitely that was very surprising. Dallas looking a little discombobulated.
Not too surprising though.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
it's not too surprising, but I do think that they do have a squad. They
yeah,
have
for
the
sure.
pieces to have a really competitive team that can go out there and compete with the best of them. And I think it's going to take some time for them to like get that together. But they struggled a bit. They struggled a bit, and that was something that I noted.
James Hudson says, I thought the Sparks would blow out Golden State, but they definitely competed.
They competed.
Yeah.
You know what I'd love to see out there with the Valkyries is that Julie Van Loo has become a quick fan favorite for the Valkyries. And I absolutely have always loved her. I loved her last year. She was the oldest rookie. I think she was the WNBA's oldest rookie last year. At 31 years of age, and she's always wanted to be a W player. She was obviously did some international play and just always had faith that she would become a W player, and she did. And I just love seeing her out there getting the love that she's getting. And she's definitely, every time she touched the ball, people were all over it and cheering her on. You could tell that they just really loved her as a player, and I love her energy. It wasn't something that was necessarily surprising, but something that I definitely love to see in their home opener for sure.
Well, shout out to everyone who got opening weekend out of the way. The worst, hopefully, is behind us. But Alicia and I will be here every single week, breaking it all down, catching you up on the stories you might have missed, and make sure you don't miss us. Follow all of our social channels here, subscribe, follow, notifications turned all the way up for our YouTube page, because that is where you'll hear about live shows like this, get full-length interviews, previous episodes, and everything and anything in between. And at the end of the show, scan the QR code, because if you are somebody who wants to listen to us on your pods while your hands are free, we will pop up wherever you get your pods. Oh, and also we have a live show this Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network. So again, if you want a reminder for that, you gotta be following us. For myself and for Alicia, it has been real. We will see you again this Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network. Don't miss it.
Well, I won't see you because I'm on vacation. It's the first show I'm missing.
I'll see you.
But Ashley will.
I'll hold it down.
Will see you.
Yes.
But I love you guys. Please watch.